Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I am actually getting ready to start working on a sewing project. It's one that I mentioned in a previous video and I thought I would just show you how I did it. But first, I just got done pulling out a package of chicken breasts. I have it sitting here in the sink so it can thaw out for dinner tonight. I'm going to make a really easy meal and I'll share that with you later on. So out there in the yard there is this big metal thing, and you've probably seen it in a couple of my videos, and it is a great big built-in smoker. And for Thanksgiving, Mr. Smith and the boys smoked one of the turkeys. We have since smoked another turkey. We've smoked chickens, and this morning we put another turkey out there in the smoker along with our son and daughter-in-law are smoking a chicken. Now they're just cooking the chicken for dinner tonight, but the turkey, I was kind of inspired by Rachel over at that 1870s homestead and her smoked chicken that she has been canning. I have a turkey. I was just about to freeze dry it, and I thought, you know what? Let's have Mr. Smith smoke it, and I'll go ahead and can it. And so that is what is in the work. Now I may can that this afternoon or I may work on it tomorrow morning. Just depends on when it gets finished. But with that, I am going to head over into the dining area and get started on the sewing project. So as you can see, I'm ironing some linen fabric here. And I'm going to make a couple more of my DIY heating pads that you would use for a stiff neck, sore muscles. Little kids might like one when they have an upset tummy. Anything that you would want a heating pad for, you could use one of these for. And you can make them in a variety of sizes and shapes. The fabric that I'm using here is linen, and it's left over from an apron that I made the other day. When you choose your fabric, you want to use a natural fabric like a linen or 100% cotton, because remember, you're going to be putting this in the microwave. I would not want to use any kind of fabric that has man-made materials in it. I wouldn't want to use polyester or anything like that. And you also want to make sure that you're using a sturdy fabric, something that isn't too thin, because you're going to be filling these with seeds or grains or legumes, and you want to make sure that anything inside isn't going to work its way through the fabric. So for the next part, I'm going to need something to measure with. I'm going to need some fabric scissors, and of course we need our ironed fabric. Now the other day I made a few of these heating pads exactly like this one, and to make this I cut out a piece of fabric that was 1 foot by 1 foot square, and I'm going to make this next one just a hair bigger than this one. So I'm just going to go and add an extra inch and make it 13 by 13. So we have our piece of fabric that is about 13 inches square, and so now to make this we're going to take the fabric, fold it in half, right side together, depending upon your fabric. Linen, honestly, I have a hard time telling if there's a right or wrong side, and so I just see, okay, whichever fabric side looks better, that'll be the inside. And so we're just going to fold this in half. Now if you needed to, you could go ahead and pin these edges in place, but I'm just going to go ahead and sew this as it is. So let me go get my sewing machine ready with some coordinating thread, and then I will show you how to sew this. so as I was sharing, we're going to sew this together. Now we're going to need leave an opening so that we can fill it. So we're going to start by sewing down one of the short sides and then the length of the long side and sew these edges together. All right, and we're going to sew about 3/8 of an inch or so from the edge of the fabric, or maybe 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm gonna cut off my excess thread that I have hanging here. All right, Mr. Smith just came in, said that the turkey was just about up to temperature. So since we're not going to can it, we're not going to fully cook this. Or since we're going to can this, we're not going to fully cook this, I should say. Just get it almost cooked. Hi, Stumper. She's like, that smells really good. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to fill the inside of our heating pad. Now you could fill this with a variety of things. You could use flaxseed, you could use dry rice, dry corn, dry beans, whatever you have on hand. A lot of people like to use flaxseed because it's fairly unscented when you heat up your heating pad. Now I usually use rice because I've almost always got gobs of rice on hand and it's inexpensive, it works really well in these. But the thing about rice is when you heat these up, you do get a sort of nutty smell that comes from your heating pad. So if that bothers you, you may want to look at something like flaxseed. But honestly, it's a little pricey and I don't generally have it on hand, at least not in bulk where I would want to use it for something like this. So for me, I always go to using rice. But you can scent your heating pad and that way you don't really get too much of that nutty rice smell. Now I really like to add dry lavender to my heating pads because it's very relaxing, and usually when you're using a heating pad you're wanting something that relaxes you anyways, and so what better to use than lavender. So I've got my pouch here that I sewed and I'm just going to kind of fold over the edge just to make it easier to hold it open, and I'm just going to start scooping in the dry rice. Now you don't want to fill this completely full because you've still got to be able to sew it shut, and you want it to have a little bit of movement. You want to be able to shape it to your neck or shoulder or what have you, and so you want to fill it about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way. I'm going to add about 1/4 cup to 1/3 cup of the dry lavender flowers here that I have. Maybe a little more. Now something else that you could do is you could make these where they are a little more medicinal. For instance, if I wanted to use one of these for cold and flu season, I might use some herbs that are really good for helping you breathe, like eucalyptus. There's all different things that you could put in here. I mean, if you just wanted to smell good, you could use the lavender, you could use dry rose petals, you could use all sorts of things. It's really just a matter of preference. So now we're going to sew this shut, and to do that, we're going to take our open edge and we're just going to fold that raw edge inside about a ½ inch or so. And this is where a couple pins might come in a little bit handy, just to kind of hold your edges right where you need them. Just like that. And then we're just going to sew this opening closed. Now you do have to kind of support the heating pad while you do this, and you want to make sure that you don't have any rice or anything up there in your fabric that you're going to be sewing. So give it a good shake and make sure it all goes down towards the other end. And then just kind of support this with your hand. And you want to sew kind of close to the opening. If you want, you could also use a zigzag stitch for this. Some people find that a little bit easier to do. There you go. A nice, soft, scented heating pad. To warm this up, you would just pop this in your microwave for 2 to 3 minutes until it's nice and toasty. Now when you pull it out, you do want to kind of mix the grains or rice or what have you inside like this back and forth, because it will develop hot spots and it might be warmer in the middle than it is on the outside. And so you just want to kind of work everything back and forth until you feel that consistent heat all throughout it. And then throw it on your neck, shoulders, forehead, tummy, wherever you want a nice heating pad. And again, this one here was 1 foot by 1 foot, 12-inch square, and then this one was about 13 by 13, so it's a little bit bigger. I'm kind of leaning towards the 13-inch square as being the better size, but 1 foot works just as well. So I thought I would come out here and show you where they had cut down some of the trees last week. So this right here was that gigantic 4-trunked oak tree. And you can see some of these huge logs that came off of that tree. We got a lot of wood, a lot of wood. So this chunk right here, we were kind of thinking maybe we could make something out of it. It's kind of cool looking. Looks like a broken heart. You see that? We got this huge thing. We'll have to take the chainsaw to this and chop it up in pieces. There's a little bit of pine from a couple of trees that were taken down, just a few logs that got left behind. We had them haul off the majority of the pine, and we just kept all of the hardwoods, mostly oak, mostly from this tree. I mean, it was a gigantic tree. And then there's also a little bit of a fruit wood. We think it was apple trees. There were 2 of them that were here that were just standing dead wood. And one of them we cut down, the tiny one. We already cut that one down and burned it. And then we have some logs from the bigger one that we had them cut down because it was pretty tall and it was right by the power line. There's lots of wood for us to work on splitting and cutting up and all of that. We did purchase a wood splitter. Nothing fancy, but it'll do the job. So this right here was an old metal cart of some sort. Don't know exactly what. It kind of reminded me of an old ice cream cart. But it was all rusted out, and it was actually kind of pinned to the ground by a T-post. And if you saw the video where I filmed them taking down some of the trees, you actually saw one of the oaks land on this and bounce up off the ground and this thing go flying. They had actually tried to move the cart to get it out of the way from the falling trees, but I told them not to worry about it. It was pinned to the ground and it's garbage anyways. It wasn't anything that we were going to be keeping. Same with that old metal table. This was just something that was going to get hauled off to the dump, so I wasn't too worried about them having things land on it. I wanted them to be safe, but I wasn't too worried about these things. But now, as you can see, there's a nice big clear area, and right there where you see those piles of brush, that's basically where the first beds are going to go. After we burn all those and pull out that old fence panel, that cattle panel that's out there that the previous owners had left behind, I'll start marking this off and figure out where to put the first beds. Of course, these are going to be raised beds. It's going to be a terraced bed or a terraced garden since it is on a slope. And I'm not going to, of course, build them all at once. I'll start off with a few beds and gradually over time, knock on wood, the Lord willing, add more every year. What you doing, Stump? Hi, Sophie. Hi, baby. Hi, miss. See that squirrel, Stumper? It is time to get dinner going. And the first thing I'm going to do is start some rice. And the dogs are rustling in the living room. So I'm going to need 2 cups of rice. I'm going to rinse it.
No. Right.
I think we need a rice bucket just for Willow to play in. What are you doing? You cooking? Willow, you cooking?
I'll just wiggle that bag today.
Yeah, I hear it. All right, so I cubed up about 1.5 pounds or so of boneless, skinless chicken breast. Now I'm going to dice up a red bell pepper. All right, so in my pot over here, I've got about a tablespoon or so of coconut oil. And I'm going to start sauteing the bell pepper in the oil. Now, when I used to make this recipe years ago, I had a rice cooker that had a steamer basket in it, and I would steam the broccoli in the rice cooker with the rice. But I don't have that anymore. I got rid of it quite a while ago. I had 2 rice cookers actually. And so I had given away the one, kept the other, and now I have my Instant Pot, and this is basically what I make my rice in as well. I ended up giving the other rice cooker away because I just don't need that many appliances. If you have something that can multitask, then it's all the better, especially when you're limited on space. That's hot. Hot. So we're going to cook the bell pepper until it's just beginning to get tender, and then we'll add in the chicken until it is opaque and mostly cooked through. Since I don't have the vegetable steamer anymore, I'll show you how I've modified this recipe, and when I add in the broccoli nowadays. The pepper is about tender, so I'm going to go ahead and add in the chicken. And add in a little bit of salt and pepper. The chicken is cooked, so I'm going to pour in a cup of chicken broth. We're going to add in some frozen broccoli. Whew. Or a lot of frozen broccoli. We're going to sprinkle in a 1/2 teaspoon of chipotle powder. And I'm going to throw on my lid so that the broccoli can cook through. What are you doing? I see, you got it on the floor. Oh, you want me to get a paper towel and clean it up? Yeah. You making a mess? It's okay. Every kid should be able to make a mess once in a while. What you doing? She's like, where's the broom? All right, the broccoli is cooked through, so now we're going to add in our cooked rice. That's all stirred in, and now we're going to add in 1/2 cup of shredded Parmesan. Nobody's home. And we'll just stir that in. And with that, dinner is done. Thanks for hanging out with me today, you guys. I'll talk to you all next time.